But the level of negligence and overall incompetence that came about this 16-year-old getting the gun, whether he was the shooter or not, which I don't believe anybody's been charged with actually shooting Miss Willingham, but she is going to attempt to hold the city of Chicago liable. We are the Armed Attorneys, and today we'll be covering a couple of stories out of our favorite anti-gun punching bag, Illinois. One involves City of Chicago gun buyback gone wrong. The other concerning the Illinois State Police specifically handing out money to track down former legal gun owners. But before we begin, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting that like button below.
And Edwin, you knocked that out of the park, 1 for 1, as always on the introduction.
Sure.
And I think we're going to start this with, there's kind of 3 parts to our discussion today. The first one has to do with a Chicago woman. This is being reported by the National Rifle Association. She was shot with one of these guns that was purchased or bought back. I'm making air quotes here. The government can't buy something they never owned. But theoretically, the government took a firearm out of circulation, and lo and behold, it showed up at a crime scene.
Well, it's kind of interesting because the story actually starts a couple of years ago. The city of Chicago was doing one of their infamous buybacks, which they've been doing these things for 30 years. And of course, have we seen a reduction in
nothing
crime
but results in Chicago?
Nothing but positive results. So they've been doing them for 30 years. And this happened to take place at one of the Chicago police's most favorite place to buy these guns back, a church called Saint Sabina Church there in Chicago. I believe the priest there is very much in favor of these gun bikes, loves doing them. Well, a couple of years ago,
he loves them.
A couple of years ago, a gun that caught the attention of a lot of police officers working the thing wound up missing. And this gun was just simply a pedestrian run-of-the-mill Glock 21, a 45 caliber, which kind of goes to show that these things are collecting mostly junk. I mean, if a Glock is going to attract a lot of attention, you go, that's a fantastic gun, then you know it's everything else is junk in comparison.
Well, and in just preparation for this episode, I mean, we were looking at the firearms that were being purchased back. Most of these things are junk. I mean, you see folks who kind of game the system with 3D printed lowers. There's that famous case of the man in Florida who had made several boomstick 1776s. These are just planks of wood with a pipe on them is what they look like. And, you know, hilarious. That's great. But when you see folks in the community who are turning in firearms, they're all pieces of junk, things that have been sitting in a closet, neglected, gathering dust, lots of antiques, things that you don't really see in circulation or at crime scenes for that matter.
Yeah, this just shows that it's all just virtue signaling nonsense. But this particular Glock, gained so much attention that the police actually noticed it, that it had disappeared between the time they took it in and they were admiring it to the time that it came to log it into the system about it, being taken to the facility to be shredded or what have you. It came up missing. The tag had been attached to another handgun. They actually found the envelope that had been put in that was thrown away in the garbage, and the gun was gone for about 2 years when it was later found while the police were chasing down a 16-year-old crime suspect.
Yeah, and he was found in possession of the firearm, and it's a little unclear how they traced it back because, all right, so they recover this gun on the 16-year-old. We know that it was stolen from, this buyback. In between, we have Miss Tawanda Willingham. She was shot with this firearm, and apparently it had been used in several other crimes. And as best as we can tell, the state of Illinois performed some kind of firearms trace. Historically, those have not been good sources of information, not super scientifically reliable, but they said this is the firearm that was used, and therefore, she's suing the city of Chicago.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Apparently, her lawsuit was just recently filed. So the gun was recovered in April. She just recently filed this lawsuit. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes forward because states and cities and other government agencies normally rely on sovereign immunity to get them out of this. But really, the level of negligence. Now they're probably
you can't waive gross negligence.
They're probably going to say, hey, there was a crime that intervened here. But the level of negligence and overall incompetence that came about the 16-year-old getting the gun, whether he was the shooter or not, which I don't believe anybody's been charged with actually shooting Miss Willingham. But she is going to attempt to hold the city of Chicago liable but for them allowing this gun that they took possession of to somehow get in the hands of a criminal who shot her. That was an episode of gross negligence for which she should be compensated. Now, one thing that's kind of an interesting aspect of this is that the 16-year-old who was found with the gun was actually located within about 5 miles of this church where it was originally taken in during the gun buyback.
Yeah, so. And somebody got $100 for it, which is really a disservice. You know, this is why they have the private sellers set up outside of these buyback events, because maybe you get more money in a private transaction. But I think this is highlighting several things that are happening in the state of Illinois, and that brings us kind of to our next segment here with regard to, going after former FOID holders.
Experts are coming around to the fact that these gun buyback programs don't actually reduce violence. They don't actually take the guns that are being targeted that they want, and they are just collecting a bunch of old guns. Recent article I read said that an old man turned in 13 antique guns. They probably were much more valuable than the $100 gift card they got, including a blunderbuss.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
But, good news coming to folks here in Texas, because guess what? We banned these buybacks. Again, air quotes, we understand. HB 3053, this is by Representative Verdell here in the state of Texas, goes into effect September 1st, 2025. And we prohibit counties, cities from engaging in this kind of stuff because we know it's a huge waste of time.
Yeah, in fact, our own version of the city of Chicago, being the city of El Paso, just recently this past weekend had kind of their finale.
Their last hurrah.
Their last hurrah gun buyback. So yeah, it's
like an episode of Intervention where they were like, just let me get high one more time.
I just want to do one more gun buyback.
Yeah.
So I've not seen any press releases about how well they did. But yeah, I'm surprised they do have about 10 days left. So we'll see if the city of Austin or Dallas or somebody else gets in on the game to have one last hurrah.
Yeah, but one other thing that we wanted to highlight happening in the state of Illinois, and this relates to the state kind of injecting a bunch of money into going after lawful gun owners whose FOID cards have expired.
Well, so the state of Illinois passes out a lot of money to a lot of police agencies for a lot of gun violence efforts. But what's interesting about the one that they just kicked off recently in the last few days was that this is a specific $1 million grant going to a lot of different police departments. Of course, almost half of it going to the City of Chicago Police Department, that are specifically designed to proceed with police interventions, in which they describe these interventions as they're going to track down and investigate people who are former FOID card holders who they believe somehow have lost their FOID rights at some point, either because they've been charged with a crime or they've had one of these emergency protective orders or domestic violence,
or they go back and clean up the records and something gets injected into the database.
But they're actually using the money specifically for manpower to go hunt these people down. So if you are a former FOID card holder in Illinois, you might have to worry about a knock at your door saying, hey, former FOID card owner, we're here to make sure that you don't have any guns. So open up your doors.
Yeah, the list of reasons to leave Illinois is just getting longer by the day.
Oh, yeah. And of course, we have a particular interest in this because, in another political arena, a bunch of Texas state reps ran off to Illinois. So if they love Illinois so much, why don't they just stay there instead of trying to Illinois, Texas?
Yeah. But we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video. And always question and comment in the section down below. And until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.